Welcome, my friend, to Next Level Change Success. I'm Therese, a change strategist and practitioner with over 20 years of experience designing and delivering impactful change programs across various industries. In this podcast, I share real-world practical strategies to help you create and deliver positive change experiences, whether you're a leader, practitioner, or someone looking to bring new ways of working to life. In today's fast-paced world, change is constant. Here we focus on how you can put people at the centre of your change strategy, because people with a sense of purpose are the most important link in driving performance. So if you're ready to create meaningful change and achieve all the success that comes with it, keep listening. Together, let's change the conversation and take it to the next level. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name is Therese and I am the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording, and to both elders past, present and emerging. Today, I am talking about change management and why it is important. We often have to put a case together for change management and for investing in change managers to come onto a project or program. And we also need to prove up the practice of it in organisations, even though people will ask for change support. And you need to continue to play back the value that change management provides without doubt in organisations, especially large ones. Why? Because when the going gets tough, people cut change. They think it's a luxury. And the terms of, this can be leader-led, starts to come into play when the reality is that leaders are busy. They don't actually outsource change. They never have, and they never should. However, it's easy for them to not lead change if the right structures aren't in place in the organisation and if the right training hasn't been undertaken with leaders, because it's not something that is taught. Oftentimes leadership isn't even taught in management schools. So, or it might be taught, and certainly when people go into their job, they're not in leadership roles. And then the rude awakening happens when you start your leadership career and you start to manage a team, and then you're starting to understand how to manage people. It can be a very, very steep learning curve. But let's get back on track about change management. And here's some of the reasons why change management is important. First one I'm going to say is if you have a large project portfolio. So if you're investing in projects, if you're investing in tech, if you're investing in an intranet upgrade, if you're investing in a restructure, if you are investing in improved processes and streamlining of processes, and you only invest in a project manager who doesn't have any change competency, so they're not understanding how to work with the comms team, the training team, the HR team, people and culture team, if they're not across how to navigate that, and they're a technical expert but not a well-rounded program or project manager, then you're going to find that you will roll out a new way of working, new tech, and it won't have the uptake that you anticipated. There will be issues with the design, and you're going to have to invest more money fixing problems. And then you might get to a point where you think, okay, we need to relaunch, let's get a change person in. And this certainly has happened through my career. I've witnessed it. I have walked into projects or environments where tech has been rolled out really poorly, and there are no structures in place, no regular communication that happens to the users, and you're having to build all of that. And then the narrative that you get is that, yes, when this was rolled out, it was really poorly done, and they rolled out training, but no one really knew how to use the system because it didn't align to our work processes. It didn't even align to our policy. And there were all these issues. And that's really because you might have had technical experts on it, but no change expertise to counterlever that and to complement that, to make sure that the design was well thought of and thought through, that the impacted individuals were really engaged and that the training hit the mark around relevancy to role, and then the feedback and continuous improvement wasn't set up for success. So if you're investing money in a project or program portfolio, then you absolutely need to bolster that with change support. And change managers can sit across multiple projects, absolutely, dependent upon their size. And that has a lot to do with how your change management practice or your EPMO, your Enterprise Project Management Office, is delivering their resources and how well they understand the change landscape and how that resourcing can happen. Now, many organizations don't have the luxury of all of those different functions because they're not big enough. So if you're sitting in an organization that's quite small, but you do have change happening, for example, a new website happening or a new intranet happening, etc., then the type of project manager you want to work with is one who understands change and projects, so that they can work with your existing communications team, that they can work with your existing marketing team to make sure that all of the people who are impacted are well informed and that the change is well managed and delivered upon. And certainly if you find that you're not in that space where the project manager, you might have a very strong technical project manager, then I would say it's worth looking at how you can either bring in a consultant to help with that, because you give them a statement of work, get them to do the change plan, get them to work with the training and change people, maybe only a couple of days a week from a cost-effective perspective. But definitely there are options that you have. You absolutely need to leverage those if you're heading down the path of rolling a technical product out without the right engagement or without the right inputs. So return on investment is the focus there. Why is change management important? You will get better return on investment for the projects that you're delivering if you have a change person on there, and that is a good change person. And I've had some episodes and had some blog posts about what makes a good change manager or a good change practitioner, because not all change managers are created equally. So important that you have a look at that as well. Return on investment. Okay, so let's also talk then about productivity and what happens when you deliver change, any change. And if you think about your own world, if anything changes, even your plans this evening, your plans with friends, straight away you're interrupted, and it takes a bit to recalibrate, get recentered, focus on, oh, okay, I thought we were going there, but now we're going there. So now I need to figure out the new directions, get there. You can tell the cognitive effort that it takes. So in organizations, when there's no great change structure, your communication channels are ad hoc, leaders aren't really well engaged on any change, there's no enterprise roadmap of change, then you're constantly getting sideswiped. And when change gets rolled out, there is always a hit on productivity. Hopefully it's not a major change, because if you roll out a system which is a core system and you haven't got a good change framework around that, nor good engagement, that is going to fundamentally disrupt your business. And sometimes that gap in productivity hurts the bottom line significantly. What's happening in organizations is that it's almost unseen the amount of damage that poorly managed change is having internally, and the organization can cope with it. But there are indicators. There are absolute indicators as to why there's poorly managed change. And let me take you through those. One is that your productivity will only be sitting at 60% of its potential, without doubt, 60%. And the reason why I say this is because when you're managing change better, you're going to get about 80% of your efficiency and your potential. So if you've only ever, if you're a disorganized organization, if you have people who are disengaged or just simply showing up, if you find that there's a lot of narrative about the passive participation that can happen in organizations. And you'll see it through your engagement surveys if you've got those happening, of course. But you will see that there's just a general, we show up, we do our work, we're not overly invested, but we do enough just to get by. Then absolutely, when you're rolling out change and you're not thinking about the change framework, you're not thinking about how you can engage these people on the change, then absolutely you're sitting at 60%. You're running the engine at 60%. If you have a change framework, if you have clear messaging, if you have more alignment to purpose for your organization, you're going to have a cultural shift. And so when you actually then introduce more change, your productivity is going to increase. The dip in productivity when you introduce change will decrease. So it will be shorter. You will be able to step up that mountain faster because people understand where they're going. People will be engaged, and as byproduct of that, what will rise to the surface will be a conversation about performance, because no longer would there be excuses for leaders or for individuals that they didn't know about something, they weren't across it. You can actually hold people to account for doing their roles. And also you may be able to realign your organization more effectively because you do have those structures in place from a change perspective. And what you're going to see is areas that really do consistently perform. So all they were waiting for was to be treated with a bit more respect, because that fundamentally is what change management's about, that they're more empowered. You will start to unlock some potential in your organization through change management. And you will, once again, as I said before, decrease the productivity dips, which means you can go further up that productivity curve than you were before. Because change management has engagement at its core, it really does help people adjust and cope. And when people talk about resilience, it feels like resilience is a little bit like this agile conversation. And so resilience is, how can people just endure the change? And I think there has to be a shift in the conversation from the concept of resilience through to people being at purpose, and that the organization is a learning organization and a growth-based organization. You don't need resilience in those environments. Resilience really is when you're just hunkering down, you're withstanding the storm. And in fact, organizations which are highly dysfunctional, you find a lot of people who are highly resilient in that organization because they've put up with it for a very, very long time. And so I would challenge that resilience is not what you want in your people. You want a growth mindset, you want a learning organization, and you want a performing organization. So why, when it comes to change management, is to create that growth environment for your people, to create that organization which really promotes psychological safety because of teaming, because of the coming together. Change management is part of that journey. Change management is part of that push. So we talked about productivity, talked a little bit about performance, talent retention. If you have an organization that manages change well, embraces change well, leads change well, you are going to have a performing organization, and you're also going to retain talent, because change incorporates succession planning and development. That's all part of being a learning organization. And so when looking at a change-friendly culture, they're the aspects that those organizations have. Is that performance? Absolutely. We're really looking at it from a team perspective. We're looking at unlocking potential. We want our employees to feel valued. We expect a win-win with employees and the employer and the organization itself. And we're not going to sideswipe you with change. We're going to let you know when things are changing. We're going to let you know the role that you play. We're going to work with you on that. And you're okay with the pace of change, which might be highly agile in the organization itself, because that's just part of a learning culture. You get to pilot things, you get to try things, you get to invest and put further investment into those things that work. That is the positivity that comes from having change in an organization. Now, high performers are going to want to stay in those organizations and grow. When they leave, it's because they're at the top of what they perceive to be their journey, and they might go on to other organizations in higher positions and feed into other areas in the industry or across industry because of the development they've had in this particular organization. Who wouldn't want to work for an organization that is change savvy, that is agile in its truest sense of being able to respond to change, which is innovative, which understands the potential of its people, and it has structures in place to facilitate change well? This is what we're talking about in my Virtual Change Manager. This is what we want to support you in creating in your organization, and for you to play a role in this when you show up and deliver, manage, or implement change or lead change. So why is change management important? Well, because all organizations need to perform. They need to be productive to do that, and effectively productive. They need to retain talent. And for every dollar they spend, they want a return on investment, which is necessary, whether it's a government organization, whether it's a privately owned organization, whether it's publicly listed. Everyone needs a return on investment and a return on effort. No one has the luxury of mediocrity in today's economy or in today's world. To perform better, it's better to be aligned, to have purpose, to respect your people, and to have change frameworks and change management theories applied in your organization, and also building change capability in your organization. So I'm hoping it's starting to prove the case for you, where there absolutely will be a return on investment on your project or program portfolio, where you will find that the productivity dip that happens with the change that you introduce is minimized, where you can retain talent, and where you can really focus on performance. These are the things that change management assists with, for sure, when you have change practices in your organization, when you have change managers come in who are performing in quality change managers. They give you that experience around the potential of that, which I think is why many times there's further investment into change resources, and then change capability building requirements across the organization. It's the normal enterprise maturity curve that you go on. And it's probably worth me noting that if you go to myvirtualchangemanager.com, there is a free enterprise maturity assessment, so you can see where your organization is up to on that change curve, and certainly some tips and hints that you get post that assessment around how you can continue on your pathway of change maturity. I hope this has helped around if you're needing to put together a case for change. And also consider when we talk return on investment, and dependent on the size of your organization, putting together the right resourcing model for your organization, I think, is quite critical, that you don't overbake it. It's one of my favorite terms at the moment, is overbake it from a resource requirement perspective, because there simply isn't that tolerance for that, especially when it's looking at change, where the perception is that soft skills, even though it's extremely difficult, it is important that you build up where the organization is at in line with their appetite, and then also be the common sense person around not over investing in change either, and leveraging and working with the people across the organization to build capability within that organization is always the best pathway. If you're heavy on contractors or fixed term contracts, you do want to make sure that you're embedding change skill sets across the organization appropriately. So I hope this episode has helped. Come to myvirtualchangemanager.com. We have lots going on. We have our Change Intelligence webinar series, which you're going to hear about in a second. We have got some great assessment tools, and we also have courses that are about to be opening the doors, and that happens throughout the year. So please jump onto myvirtualchangemanager.com, come and check us out, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and just remember that change matters because your people matter. Hi, it's Therese here again. I just wanted to mention that we have the Change Intelligence webinar series happening this year, and you don't want to miss out on any of the topics that we're going to cover. It's a live webinar series talking about change resilience, change frameworks, connected thinking, how you can change your mindset and the mindset of others, behavioural change and what that can offer. If you don't want to miss out, then come to myvirtualchangemanager.com. Just simply register and we'll let you know when the next webinars are happening so that you can come along. Spaces are limited, so be sure to jump across and register as soon as you can, and you'll see some of the topics that we're going to cover. I hope to see you there and to continue to work with you to create positive change experiences.